Welcome to the Sales Development Podcast, your trusted resource for the latest strategies, tactics, and tips on running a high-performance sales development program. Sales development has grown to become a critical part of the success of high-growth companies, and we dive in each week on how to specifically make your program successful and accelerate your career advancement. Subscribe at iTunes, YouTube, and jump on the newsletter over at Tenbound.com to make sure you never miss an episode.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to another edition of the Sales Development Podcast. I am David Delaney, your host, and I'm joined today all the way across the pond here from a very warm, summery England, it sounds like. Niraj Kapur, expert sales coach, trainer, and author of 2 best-selling Amazon books, Everyone Works in Sales and The Easy Guide to Sales for Business Owners. Niraj, how are you doing today, sir?
David, absolute pleasure. Lovely talking to you. I enjoy listening to your podcast, so it's even more exciting I'm talking to you now.
Yeah, I'm excited to get you out maybe to a different audience here because, most of our listeners are in the software industry running sales development teams, and we're in sort of a little bubble over here. So it's great to get some new voices on the show. And, I love to dive in to how you got into the sales training and coaching industry and some of the trends that you're seeing out there.
Yeah, sure. Well, I spent 23 years, first of all, just working in sales. And then in 2010, my wife at the time said, look, you can't be a salesman your whole life. I think like many people, like my parents are Indians. So they're all highly educated, doctors, physios, teachers, they all have degrees. And, Indians like to boast about their children. My son's a lawyer, my son's a doctor. And my mother's like, my son's a salesman. It was a source of great embarrassment to her. And my wife at the time said, look, you're great at coaching people. One thing you're really good at is taking care of people. People who work with you say you're a good guy to work with. You help them. I really think you should go into management. And I kind of held back for a long time because all I see managers doing is spending all day in meetings, and meetings are boring for me. I want to be out seeing clients. I want to be on the phone. That's what excites me. It's not taking meetings all day. So I reluctantly became a manager. It's the best thing I ever did because luckily the company I worked for, Informa, they had management training programs. I got a coach for the first time. I got a mentor for the first time. In my career, I went from being above average to being brilliant. And that was a big difference. For many years, I was above average because I worked really hard. I cared. I picked up the phone. 3 very simple skills I had, but that was it. I wasn't that skilled in sales. But once I got coached, once I went on courses, once I started reading books on personal development, my career went to a completely different level. It went to what I would call the elite level of sales, the top 1%.
Nice. That's hilarious because I worked for a sales training company for 7 years and they were purchased by Informa. And so it's such a small world. Informa is a multi-billion-dollar company, right? And so
it's an absolute beast of a company. Most people don't even... I've met people last year who actually work in the same company as me, but completely different division. And I had no idea because it's such a big company and everybody works in their own little divisions. So you rarely get a chance to meet anybody unless you win like a chief sales officer club or the annual dinners. That's the only time you meet anybody else, which is a real shame because it's such a big company, but you just don't get a chance to do that.
So it's so vast and it's a great company. I remember they did invest in people and they cared about people and they left a good impression. And, you mentioned that once you got into Informa and you felt the pull of management finally, they invested in you. They gave you some coaching, some training and things like that. Why do you think that people hesitate around getting a coach if that's not offered by their company?
Most people I speak to, because now being a full-time coach and trainer, the thing that holds them back is they think it's a cost instead of an investment. Coaching is always an investment in your future. But most people either think it's expensive or, sadly, most people don't even think of coaching. That's even worse, actually. Most people don't treat sales as a profession, especially in England, in the UK. So many people are in sales for a few years so they can earn enough money to go on a few nice holidays, get drunk at the weekends, buy some clothes. That really is sales performs that function. Not many people go into sales thinking, I'm going to have a career. And that's the big problem you have. It's not treated like a profession. And the second problem is most companies don't offer sales training, which they should. They don't offer proper sales training. So most salespeople I see get maybe half a day and they're not trained properly ever, or they watch a few YouTube videos, or they read a company handbook. That's not enough. You have to be learning every single day. This is my 25th year in sales, David. 25th year. And I still read half an hour a day. I still listen to podcasts every night. And I still have a coach once a month who works with me as sales coach to keep me accountable and to make sure I'm still getting better.
Okay. And so how do you work with a coach? What's the format and, how does he keep you or he or she keep you accountable?
Well, whenever I coach people, I'll often say, okay, what are the biggest sales challenges you're having right now? And they will tell me. And I'll say, okay, now of these three, talk to me about why you're having these problems. So you want to know the problems they're having, but you also want to know why they're having these problems. And you want to know what deadlines they're working to. I always ensure there's deadlines, because if there's no deadlines, people just take their time. There's no urgency. So you got to have deadlines in place. And that's it. And I'll work with them. And it's quite interesting because there's very similar patterns I see in coaching, whether it's one-to-one or whether it's group coaching. The problems are almost the same. Everybody wants to generate more sales. And people always say, can you teach me some techniques about how to close more deals? And that's why most people hire me. And when I spend time working with them or listening to their phone calls or chatting to their colleagues, I realize closing deals is not the problem, David. The problem is they're not following sales process. They're not engaging. They're not asking good questions. They're not following up. They're not providing good content. They're not using LinkedIn effectively. And those tend to be the same problems with almost every single person I speak to. It's incredible. Almost 90% of people, it's the same problems.
Okay. So there's no process in place. So they're just kind of winging it and, bouncing around almost like a pinball machine every day. And so with coaching, you can hold them accountable to a process. How do they say they're out there right now and they're like, well, my management team hasn't provided me with a process. How should they go about creating something like that?
If your management team haven't trained you, which to my surprise, many companies don't, what you got to start doing is reading books on sales to understand that process. That's so important. So for me, I always start off with the classics. So you get the Jeb Blunt's Fanatical Prospecting, you read Anthony Iannarino, you read, Jeffrey Gitomer's Little Red Book of Selling. These are the basics you have to read. And you don't just read these books, you study them, you underline them, you make notes. Okay, so that's the first thing is read books. Now people are quite lucky because you have free access to podcasts. When I started off, there were no podcasts, but podcasts now are a fantastic resource. Now, I learn a lot from podcasts as well. And the other thing you have to do is have role plays with your team. So I always encourage people, if you're learning, just one day, buy one of your colleagues breakfast, preferably a colleague smarter than you or more successful than you in the company, and just say, can I buy you breakfast or buy some lunch? And maybe you can spend 5 or 10 minutes doing a role play with me, just to help me out. And a lot of people will say yes. Some will be busy and say no. But I always go to people more successful than me and say, can you do a role play with me? And role plays are really hard to do. And you feel more pressure with somebody you really admire and look up to. And that's the idea, is to be under pressure. And then you discuss feedback, what you did well and what you can improve.
Got it. Okay. And so if the management has not provided a sales process, the person should actually just make their own sales. So first they have to make their own sales process. Then they have to hold themselves accountable to following the process. Is that correct?
Yes.
Got it. Okay. And then having a coach would then add a layer of accountability to make sure that you are following the process and perhaps changing the process, to improve it, correct?
Oh, absolutely. Look, I've taken courses on Tony Robbins and Jack Canfield. I've invested thousands of pounds in these, and they all say the same thing. Look, you can spend 3 years learning something yourself, or you can spend 3 months learning it from a coach. And trust me, as a business owner, it's much better to learn something in 3 months than 3 years. Always, if you can condense time, time is the most important thing you have, especially as you get older. So I'd rather learn something really quickly than spend years learning it and years making mistakes. Because over those 3 years, you're going to waste 10, 20, 30, 40,000 pounds in lost commission, lost earnings, by not knowing what you're doing. But if you
Got
invest $3,000 or $5,000 in a coach to begin with, you can learn so much. And that's the thing about coaching, is keeping people accountable, but also is getting people results. So when I work with people, I always say, what do you want to get out of this? What's your end goal? And a lot of the time they say commission. I say, look, that's great, but it has to be more than commission. Commission's not enough, okay? What do you want to buy? What do you want to achieve? Do you want respect of your colleagues? Do you want to get a promotion? Do you want to become better at your job? Commission's important, but you have to give me more than that. Commission's always the first answer you normally get, but it has to be more than that. And we talk about their goals, their vision, their dreams. And when people have goals, visions, and dreams, it's so much easier to achieve your sales target.
And this is an audio. So you actually mentioned you have a vision board. So you're taking these goals and dreams and making them into something that you can see every day when you're getting kind of beat up and bummed out, right?
Absolutely. So on a vision board, every successful person you admire, every successful entrepreneur, especially every successful athlete, if you're looking at baseball, American football, basketball, I've read about Michael Jordan, I've read about Roger Federer, I've read about all these great American athletes. They all have vision boards. Muhammad Ali was renowned for visualizing all the time. So you got to think like, don't think you're just a salesperson. You got to think like the top people. That's how you become great in your profession. Okay?
Yeah.
Don't go around saying these top athletes are on a different level to me. That's the attitude you got to have. And if it's good enough for them, it's good enough for me. And if you look at the behavior of a lot of the top athletes in the world, they have vision boards. So they will have a list of a lot of the things they've achieved to date, whether it's family or something more materialistic like a nice house, nice car. And then they have other images on their vision board as well of things they want to achieve. They will have pictures of things that inspire them, whether it's family, kids, grandkids, parents, grandparents. A vision board has to be something that inspires you every time you look at it. And my vision board is above my desk. It's also on my computer, my mobile, my fridge, So I'm looking at my vision board 15, 20 times a day without even realizing it. That means I get fired up all the time. It means if I get 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 rejections, which often happens in sales, you get rejected a lot. I don't sit there depressed. Of course it affects me, but not too much. My vision board gets me back on track because I'm doing this for my parents. I'm doing this for my daughter. I'm doing this so I can give more money to charity. I'm doing this because I want to be better. A vision board keeps you fired up. Every salesperson, if you create a vision board, you will achieve so much more. And the second thing I've seen from a lot of these great athletes, with the exception of Michael Jordan, a lot of the great athletes are actually incredibly humble. Roger Federer is a really nice guy. A lot of these athletes, I've met quite a few sports stars as well through CEOs I know. A lot of them are incredibly nice people, incredibly friendly. And I often find the best salespeople are not braggers or show-offs. They're actually really down-to-earth, nice people.
I love that. I think, especially now with we've had shelter in place now for like 3 months, and it's pretty easy to get in a negative frame of mind, when you're facing a lot of rejection, things in the business world are like going sideways and stuff like that. But to have a vision board, it gives you, some positive energy in your day that you can look at, especially if you're a visual person.
Absolutely, 100%. Vision boards are so important. They really are. And, you always have to look at what are successful people doing. And there's a great personal development guru called Brian Tracy. When he started off, he became successful by finding out the most successful people in his company, take them out for lunch, just asking them questions and advice. And that's exactly what I did. When I joined Informa, I found out who the most successful people were in most divisions. And I just had lunch with them. And some said no, some said yes. And the ones who said yes, I bought them breakfast or I bought them dinner or I bought them lunch, depending how busy they were. And I just asked them questions. And it was quite interesting that so many of the successful people, they were great learners. They read books. They were humble. They supported their teams. And they worked really, really hard. This is really basic stuff, but a lot of people don't think about a lot of the important things you do in sales is really basic.
Yeah, it's easy. I think in this day and age that we live in, it's easy to let complexity, seep in to your mind because the world is so complex now, and there's so many messages coming in from all these different channels and social media and stuff like that. You've got a powerful computer in your pocket, and all these different messages are coming in. And essentially, what I'm hearing is that it's a simple, they call it like basic blocking and tackling. It's a simple process that you're following each day, grounded around learning and accountability, that has helped you to, become more successful.
Yeah, I mean, Nick, sports analogies are fantastic when you're talking to guys. They just get it in most cases. So I use a lot of sports analogies. I use golf, tennis. I guess you guys call it football. We call it soccer. But yeah,
right.
I give a lot. I love watching sports, and I love learning from great athletes. I was watching an amazing documentary on Netflix called The Last Dance, and it's about the Chicago Bulls team. So you got Michael Jordan, the greatest basketball player in the world, but you had so many of his teammates as well. And why was Michael Jordan the best basketball player of all time? He worked his ass off. He outworked people. He was constantly learning, constantly growing. He had a fantastic mindset. Again, really simple stuff. He pushed his team hard as well. Because, a lot of the time in sales, people just are lone wolves, but you will always achieve more in sales working with a team and having people work with you. And as a manager especially, so many managers I see, they can't manage because they haven't had management training. And when I became a manager, I tried to do everything myself, and I struggled. But once I empowered my team and trained my team, they became successful. And we all became successful together. And that's why we were always number one, because every Monday I would have one-to-ones, and every Wednesday we would do call coaching sessions. And no other manager did this. And at Informa, over the years, there was a lot of restructures, a lot of redundancies, and a lot of managers with way more experience than me lost their jobs. I kept mine, even though I was the least experienced manager, because my team kept making money, because I'm the one who spent time coaching them. And there's a really valuable lesson. And then other managers after a while realized that, and then they started coaching their teams to success because they realized that was the best thing to do.
You were effective. So let me ask you this. You mentioned that your parents, and you can plug in whatever background, but a lot of parents, especially, they're proud of the doctors, the lawyers, the accountants, and things like that. Do you think that mindset would ever change for sales, or are we just basically stuck in that mindset that our parents are not necessarily going to understand or approve of what we're doing, and we just have to move forward?
Yeah, listen, my parents are Indian, my best friend's Jewish, so I totally get it,
Yeah.
I totally get it. The problem is every single day on LinkedIn, people complain about bad selling. They do. They complain about people who are untrained selling. And those people are not just salespeople. They're account executives. They are business development managers. They are now working in marketing companies, marketing executives. You even have business owners now who just sell so badly on LinkedIn. You connect with them and you say, what made you want to connect? Then they send you just paragraphs of features and no benefits without asking anything, and this bad selling takes place every single day, 10 to 15 times a day on LinkedIn, on email, and it's just constantly bad. And because so many people complain about it, people don't have respect for salespeople. I recently moved into a new house.
Yeah.
Oh, it is getting worse. And since my divorce, I moved into a new house. And a month after I moved into my new house, lockdown occurred. So I'm having to deal with customer services of companies like my car company, my change of address, my utilities company. I'm having to contact so many people. And the customer services have got worse. They're appalling. I mean, really bad. And every day I'm dealing with really incompetent people who can't sell properly. And it frustrates me because I work in sales and I want people to get better. And I always ask people, the way you've spoken to me, do you ever read any sales books at all or listen to podcasts? They're like, no, I never thought of that. It's amazing. People just don't see sales as a profession or as something they have to learn. And until they see it as a profession, it's going to continue having a really bad reputation, which is a real shame because there are some great salespeople out there and there are some great sales trainers out there because I've been to their events or I've worked with them myself, and it's a real shame because a lot of good people don't get recognized because there's so many bad ones out there.
Yeah, I mean, and so essentially we need to take more responsibility for this. And there's some accrediting, organizations here that give you a degree in sales or some sort of certification and things like that, but they're not very well known and not that many people do it because to get into sales, you just can talk your way into the job, and there's not you don't have to have like a PhD to get into sales. So really, we have to take personal responsibility for upping the game and building that respect, it seems.
We do. And, when I work with people, people always say, are you a sales trainer? And of course I am, but really I'm on a mission to raise the standards of sales with people I work with. That's my mission. And it's a really important mission to me. And I want to make sure that when people work with me, they're better off as a result, not just financially, of course, that is important, but in terms of their levels of awareness, the fact that they treat sales differently, the fact that if they're not working with me anymore, they're still out there learning all the time. They're still out there making a difference. I had a client who called me literally last month, and we hadn't worked together since last October. And he says to me, Niraj, during lockdown, I've started reading sales books. Oh my God, what a difference it makes. It's just nice when people listen to your advice and they see a difference themselves and they start to do better. And I just wish more people would invest in sales, not just books and podcasts, but sales coaching, because it will take you to another level. It really and truly will.
I totally agree. And you've written a couple of books. So tell me, that's a whole process in itself, right? I mean, if you're working full time and you're trying to run a business and you've got your personal life and everything, how do you fit in writing an entire book?
Yeah, writing a book and setting up a business are one of these things that if you ever knew how difficult it would be, you would never do it. It's as simple as that. I would never have, especially running a business. If I knew how difficult it was, I would just keep working in corporate because it's so much easier. It really is. I know that every month I'm definitely going to get a salary and commission no matter what. But, running a business, there's no guarantees. Well, I wrote my first book because I spent from 2011 to 2016 at Informa traveling the world, doing shipping events, shipping conferences, and selling shipping advertising in magazines, websites, partnerships. And, doing business in South Korea is very different to the Middle East. And doing business in the Middle East is very different to Canada. And doing business in Canada is very different to America. So I'm very lucky that those 5 years I traveled the world, I learned so much about people. I got a chance to travel America, which was amazing. I learned a lot about American people. I learned to appreciate them on a level that a lot of people don't see. Because in the news, you just see the top level stuff. You don't really see what other people are really like. And I got a chance to love America. I really did fall in love with the people in a big way. And that's why I kept coming back all the time. And, it was a great experience. But I also discovered that no matter where in the world I went, most people couldn't sell. And that surprised me, but it also disappointed me. And I wanted to raise the standards of sales. So I wrote a book called Everybody Works in Sales. Now, there's so many sales books out there, David. How do you stand out? Because that's very important. And I thought, well, how do I stand out? And I know in selling, one of the smartest things I do that gets the best results is storytelling. So I decided to write my life history, my 23 years working in London in sales, my experiences traveling the world, and every chapter is a lesson you can learn in sales. So that was really important. So I give you all this great storytelling, which gets people involved in my life, and people connect with stories more than facts. There's a lot of failure, which people weren't expecting, because a lot of sales books are just people bragging about their commission and how much money they earn. So many sales books are like that. But with me, I talk about failure. I talk about the pain of making mistakes. I talk about regrets in my life. And then you see my success. But it took me a lot of failure to get to success. And I think people really liked it. And it just kept selling and selling and selling. And I spent almost 21 weeks in the Amazon Top 100. Now, for a self-published book, that's quite rare. That only happens 3 or 4 times a year. And it just kept selling. And that I saw the royalties from that and thought, yes, I'm going to launch my business. But of course, I wasn't smart enough to realize after a few months, those royalties get reduced. The book kept selling. And, after about 10 months, the royalties were very small. And then literally 3 months ago, I launched my second book. And people love my second book, The Easy Guide to Sales for Business Owners. They started by my first book. So my first book now is selling well again. So I'm quite lucky. I've got 2 incomes, one for my first book and income from my second book as well. So it's great at the moment, actually, because all the business I've lost in lockdown from speaking at events, all the corporate training I've lost, I'm making up for it now with my 2 books and one-to-one coaching. That's currently how I'm making a living at the moment.
Nice. Okay. And so as you thought through the books, I mean, is it like, did they sort of come out in like, did you lock yourself into a cabin for a week and just like crank out a book, or was it in drips and drabs over a long period of time?
No, it was in drips and drabs. Again, consistency is so important in sales. Consistent prospecting is important. Consistent learning is vital. Consistency will help you win. So I wrote 1 hour every single morning. That was it. I got into the office at 7:30 and I wrote till 8:30. Because by about 8:45, people start walking into an office. So you get distracted. And I locked myself in a room, no internet, my phone was off, and you can get a lot of work done in 1 hour with no internet and no tech. You really can. So I did that, finished the book, and then I spent £2,000, which is about $3,000 on a book coach, which is the best thing I did. So the book coach advised me on marketing, book marketing, how to sell the book. He also went through my book and said, okay, cut the last 20 pages. It's an amazing book. The last 20 pages are negative. I don't like it. Rewrite it. And he just, again, like a good quality coach, helped me get better. And so when the book came out, it was in great shape. And what so many people do is they write books, release it, and they sell only between 50 to 100 copies, which is terrible because they have no idea how to sell a book and they have no idea how to market a book. But because I invested thousands in a coach, my book sold thousands of copies. And that was really important. And those royalties meant I could pay my coach and I made some profit as well.
You make a few bucks. Okay, then a coach again coming in for the book and seeing around the corner and helping you to, guide you to create something that's really valuable. It's amazing.
Oh yeah. I keep saying to people, my success is because of coaching. And even now after 25 years, I have a sales coach once a month. She spends an hour with me, keeping me accountable. And if I don't do what I've promised her, she doesn't say to me, it's okay, Niraj. She's like, Niraj, you're paying me a lot of money. You're wasting your money. You promised me something. You didn't deliver. Why? And that's what you need. You need people who are going to push you. I don't want someone to hold my hand and tell me I'm wonderful. I want someone who's going to push me and make me better. And my sales coach, she's great. And I also had a mindset coach in January because after 21 years, I got divorced. I was a real mess and I was in a lot of pain and I was hurting and it was affecting my work. So I hired a mindset coach and he spent a bit of time with me, really getting me into shape with my brain and getting rid of negative thoughts. And again, a mindset coach isn't cheap. It was about $450 an hour, but best thing I could have done because after a few weeks, my brain was fine. And now I'm firing on all cylinders.
Nice. That's interesting too, because when you start a business, you go from being in this very micromanaged environment where everything that you do is scrutinized, and you've got all these people that want results from you immediately. And then you start a business and it's gone, and so at first you're just like, okay, there's nobody holding me accountable except myself. So did you ever get a business coach, or have you ever thought about that, having somebody help you like that?
I never thought of getting a business coach because I've met a lot of people who've had business coaches, and I've been very surprised how ineffective many of them are. So I talk to people who invest a lot of money. So in dollars, it would be probably $12,000 to $15,000 a year with a business coach, which is a big investment. And I would say to them, what did the business coach do? And they went, the business coach did a disc profile. They asked me lots of questions. I'm like, yeah, but what advice did they give you? And that's the thing. As a coach, I will ask you a lot of questions. And I want you to give me the answers. But at the same time, I give you so much advice that I know is working every day. But a lot of the sales coaches, and I've met hundreds of sales coaches, they ask you questions, make you do profiles, but they don't really give you the real life advice needed to succeed because they're all following an action coach or some kind of formula. And that doesn't help you with the nitty gritty. It really doesn't. And if you're a business coach and after 10 years, you're still working at home and you're still one person, then I got a problem with that. Whereas me, this is now my I've just finished 2 years and 3 months of business. I have a PA now. That to me is growth because I'm paying another salary. I outsource a lot of my business now. So I outsource not just my PA, but my podcast editing. I outsource so many things through Fiverr, logo designs. I invest in so many other people. And very soon I was planning to look for some office space because I want my company to get bigger. But that for me is what growth looks like. There's so many business coaches after 10 years are still in the same place. That for me sets off alarm bells. So I think because I've had so many people with bad experiences of business coaches, I've been a bit cautious about hiring one.
Yeah, it's almost like you want, Bill Gates or Warren Buffett to be your business coach because you know that they can grow it, not a guy in his mom's garage, right?
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to be cruel because I appreciate, look, we all have to start off somewhere, of course.
100%, yeah.
But if after so many years you haven't grown or changed, that sets off alarm bells for me. A lot of people I see out there who call themselves coaches, they do not invest in themselves. They want other people to spend money with them, but they don't invest themselves. And if you're a coach and I say to you, recommend me 3 books you're reading right now, and they can't tell me, I know you're not a good coach. Because good coaches invest in themselves. If I say to a coach, what brilliant course have you been on recently? And they tell me something they did 5 years ago, you're completely irrelevant. And so many of these so-called successful coaches who are very good at PR and very good at BS, they're not very good at coaching at all. They sell this big spin. Because I've met quite a lot of people on LinkedIn who recently say, oh, I'm crushing it. I'm killing it. I have so much business. I don't know what to do. And I know for a fact these people aren't crushing it. They're just saying they are. I know for a fact they're not. You can tell by the cars they drive are really old. They wear clothes from 10 years ago, and they're busy all the time on LinkedIn or social media trying to get business because they have no business, So, being authentic is very important. And it's quite interesting that almost 90% of my clients, one-to-one, are women, which I think is fascinating. And women come to me because I sell with integrity, because I'm not aggressive like so many men are. On a group level, it's mainly men who hire me, weirdly enough. But on a one-to-one level, most of my clients are women.
And so why do you think that pattern developed? Is it they're just more open to coaching, and men, not to stereotype, but men think that they know it all already and they're rugged individual type mentality?
That's a perfect stereotype, and it's actually right.
Okay.
Everything you've said is exactly right, David.
I'm looking at myself.
Men are terrible at asking for help. Women are very good at asking for help. They don't like it, and it might take them a while, but they do ask. And I think maybe it's because I'm quite lucky. I have an independent mother, independent grandmother. I had a strong independent wife. I got an independent daughter. I'm used to being surrounded by strong women, and most men's egos get really badly affected by that. And most of the bosses I've had and CEOs have been women. So whenever I'm working with a woman who's more senior to me, and she maybe not tells me off, but tells me what to do, so many men get defensive. It's just incredible. Their fragile egos get hurt. They start using language that's inappropriate. And I've never done that. As far as I'm concerned, this person is in a more senior position to me. They've earned that position. I'm going to learn from them and respect them. And, most of the success I've had in my life has been from women. My CEO at Informa was one of the very few female CEOs in a top company in England. And she was brilliant. And she inspired me. And she pushed me hard. She paid me well. She treated me with great respect. I loved her. But a lot of people complain because they can't tolerate being told what to do by a woman. So I guess in that respect, I've been quite lucky because I know how to talk to women. And if they question me, my ego doesn't get offended. And I think also because I teach selling with integrity. I don't teach you 10 ways to close a deal. I don't come from the Grant Cardone school of selling and which is so aggressive and so ridiculously over the top. It doesn't work in the UK. Grant Cardone gave a talk in the UK last year. And he's very good at motivation. 10x, he's really loud and he really gets you fired up. And I was really impressed by it. And then he came to selling his course. And he was terrible. He was fumbling. He was talking. He was really bad at it. And a week later, his course was cancelled in England. And this is Grant Cardone, the guy who claims to be number one in the world. He couldn't even sell his own course. So, a lot of young people, especially young men, like him because he's rich and his partner's kind of hot and he has a private jet. So young men love him because that's what young men want. But when you get to my age, you don't really care about those things. Money's important, of course, but I don't care if you have a private jet. I care about what you can teach me, and I care about the quality of your character.
Yeah. There's a guy, I think his name's Mike Winnett, who he's on YouTube. You got to look it up. He does these hilarious.
Yeah, entrepreneur videos. Yeah,
he's a British guy. Yeah. These hilarious, sarcastic posts about Grant Cardone and that whole industry, which is a very negative. I mean, there's kind of there's a spectrum of people who are mentors and stuff, and there's sort of this dark, corner of the whole thing that just tries to it's kind of a creepy, vibe over there. But yeah, I mean, I can't imagine that type of over the top sales pitch going over well in the UK, just based on the culture. Yeah.
And that's why nobody went to his course. That's why.
Right.
I mean, in America, he's very big. He does very well. He makes a lot of money, but he couldn't work in the UK because it doesn't work.
I think the BS detector is just way too high over there.
Oh God, it really is. And people in England are more cautious about sales. And people in England will spend $12,000 a year on a business coach, but they won't think of spending $2,000 a year on a sales coach. They just won't. So they don't like salespeople. And when you cold call people in England, they don't like it. Yeah. I still cold call, of course, because cold calling is important. And it's important I cold call every day because I understand what my clients are going through, which is why I still do it. But it's really hard. It's not impossible, but it's really hard work. But people hate being cold called in this country. They really don't like it.
Yeah. You need a whole higher level skill set and the mindset, to be able to do that and take that kind of rejection. But on the other side of it is opportunities that you may never have had, right? If you never tried. So, well, Niraj, this has been just a treasure trove of information, and I appreciate all the resources. I want to ask you about some of the coaches that you've had because it sounds like they're really effective, and I might hire a couple of them myself. So, big picture, if someone wants to get in touch with you, I know that you're on LinkedIn. What's the best way to get in touch with you and dive into some of this?
Yeah, it's quite interesting. I always say to people, the best way to contact me is everybodyworksinsales.com, my website. And no matter how many times I say that, they keep going to my LinkedIn profile. So my website's really good. I spent so much money investing in it. It's a brilliant website. But yeah, LinkedIn's the best way to contact me.
I'll go to there first.
Yeah, so you can go to everybodyworksinsales.com, but LinkedIn is where most people contact me, and I post 5 days a week on LinkedIn. 3 days a week I post valuable content. 1 day a week I will support a client of mine because it's really important to support your clients on LinkedIn. Salespeople don't do this, and they should. Please support your clients on LinkedIn. Don't like their posts, comment on their posts, share their posts. They will love you for it, and they are more likely to do business with you than your competitors. And 1 day a week, I'll share some charity work because my charity work is important to me, and it says a lot about me as a person that I do charity work as much as I do. So again, when people are looking for sales trainers, most sales trainers are the same to people, even though we're not. So I do charity work 1 day a week on LinkedIn just because it helps other people. So LinkedIn's the best way to find me. Niraj Kapur, Niraj Kapur. I'll be happy to hear from people from your podcast. That'd be amazing.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming on the Sales Development Podcast, and we really appreciate it.
I really appreciate it. Thank you so much for your time, David.
Thank you for listening to the Sales Development Podcast, the only audio forum 100% focused and dedicated to sales development, with your host, David Delaney. Please be sure to subscribe to the show on YouTube and take a moment to leave us a review on iTunes. Your support makes our show possible. If you are struggling with your sales development program, contact us at tenbound.com for a no-obligation exploratory call. Again, that's tenbound.com.